charity, we're always talking about charity and how, you know, mostly people say charity begins at home. And if you're particularly broke, you're not perhaps going to be digging your hand into your pocket to give money to charity. So what can you do instead if you're feeling charitable? The charitable sector, I think, at the moment is going through a real crisis, not only because of funding, but also because of trust. I think a lot of people feel that the bigger charities are probably spending way too much money on admin and on CEO wages and all of that kind of thing, that they feel they don't want to give money to charity. I give money to 2 charities through my bank account every month, and any other charitable money I give to small local charities that I can see the work that they do. And I know that 100% of that money is actually going to help the people that I want to help. So, but those are the decisions that I've made. What decisions have you made with regards to charities? Have you lost faith in them? Do you think they spend too much money on themselves? Do you think that their office blocks are far too prestigious? Do you think that their CEOs get too much money? Or do you think, look, this is what charities need to do? We need charities. We need the charitable sector. So charities and employers are struggling due to post-Brexit funding delays because European funding was removed from these charities. The government is supposed to step in and replace that money, and it's not been happening. So many charities will fold. Many charities will have to close because of this. Probably not the big rich ones, and we know who they are, and you know who you are. But hundreds of voluntary organisations have been forced to shut up shop because they rely on this money. They're volunteers. They don't get paid. So there must be another way, perhaps, that we can help charities if we can't afford to give money. And most of us now are worrying about the gas bills and the food bills and the electricity bills and the petrol costs and all of those things. So we're perhaps not feeling like we want to give money to charities. But is there something else you can do? Amo Raju joins me now, who's CEO of Disability Direct and author of Walk Like a Man. Hi, good to see you. Thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. It is safe to say, isn't it, that charities are suffering a bit of a crisis at the moment from all directions?
I think it is very safe to say that, but I'd also add that charities have been facing a crisis for many, many, many years, you know, going back to the austerity measures put in place back in 2009 and 10. You know, we've been living on shoestring budgets since then. And, you know, it's only been recently that they're announced again there's likely to be cuts to local government funding, which has a knock-on effect for charities who are expected to work even harder to try and fill those gaps in local service.
And I mean, it is extraordinary how many charities, I think, until you need them, you're not really aware that they're there. I've mentioned it before. My younger brother has early onset dementia. Right, he's very young. He's very ill, and it's absolutely amazing to me where social services obviously don't have the funding either, but they can often let him down. And being honest with you, I think the people within social services are brilliant. I think the system is broken. But it's the charities that step up. You've got these wonderful charities that befriend people like my brother, that go shopping for him. And I literally wasn't aware that they even existed. And these are the voluntary sector. These are not the big charities. We're not talking about Cancer Research UK or RSPCA, the very wealthy charities. These are the volunteer sectors that rely on funding from people like you and me.
Absolutely. And, you know, I can't thank you enough for mentioning the littler charities, the smaller charities, the forgotten, unsung heroes.
They're amazing. Extraordinary people.
That exists. And we don't have to look too far back. The pandemic showed the charity sector stepped in and saved the day to some extent in terms of getting food to vulnerable people who are isolated in their own homes. My own charity in Derby, you know, stepped up, and I praise my staff and volunteers for doing that. And, you know, and so many across the country, as I said, whether it was faith groups who are not for profit, or whether it was your small luncheon clubs, that you know, they didn't down tools when we went into lockdown. They actually moved up a gear and really kind of, as I say, saved the day. And you do forget about them. It's only when you need them. And I run a disability charity, and the amount of times my organisation's been here for nearly 30 years, and the amount of people still say in the locality, we didn't know you existed. It's only when they've suddenly got a long-term condition themselves or a loved one has, that they look out for us. And that's great that they do, but, wouldn't it be nice if everybody just, looked over to the charity sector on a more regular basis, just to support us in any way you can. And you were right in your intro. It's not always about money. Sometimes people have specialisms which charities are crying out for.
And this is the other thing, when I was talking to you about the crisis that charities are facing, I think that a lot of us try to do the right thing, okay? When I was moving house, I had very good furniture that wouldn't fit into my smaller accommodation that I tried to give to charities. They were rude to me. They were going, oh, and it's not in perfect condition. We can't resell it. And I was thinking, I'm trying to do something decent here. And a lot of people that I speak to on this programme and many other programmes say, I really try to help. But it's so often you're treated like you're trying to offload some old rubbish, or and you're not. You're genuinely trying to do the right thing. And I know that with one of the sofas that was practically new, it was just too big, somebody would have taken that.
Yeah.
But nobody took it, so it had to be dumped. And I was heartbroken about it. So some charities, they make you feel that that being charitable isn't the right way to go.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And I'd hopefully say on behalf of the charity sector that all charities are like that, and we do welcome those kind of donations.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes in that particular situation, charities have to go by certain regulations, and if the label isn't on the sofa, then they can't accept it or whatever. There's no need to be rude.
I mean, honestly, it was like, one of them said it was a single bed, and the guys were there. And it was in the spare bedroom, so it had not been used. And one of the guys said, well, have you still got the instructions? We can't take it without the instructions. And it was like, actually, I have. And they looked like they were gutted. They were like, oh, we're going to have to take it then. It's like, oh, I mean, honestly, sometimes charities don't help themselves, is what I'm saying, when people try to do the right thing.
Yeah, and I say that's unfortunate, but I do think the vast majority of charities out there will probably, reach out and say, yes, help us in any way you can. And if it is furniture or clothing or your own service that you want to offer, then I think they will accept it with open arms.
Yeah, British Heart Foundation. Right, I can name and shame, you can't. Now, listen, the thing is that, like we're saying, right, we're all feeling the pinch, and there may be some people who've decided not to continue supporting the charity that maybe they've been supporting, but they want to do something. So what can we do? How do we volunteer without it kind of taking over, without that idea like, well, you've got to give 20 hours a week, or you've got to give... What can we do?
20 hours a week can be quite extreme, but sometimes just an hour a week is a lot. Let's say you're in the trade of, I don't know, building, or whether you're a carpenter or electrician or plumber or whatever. Sometimes charities can't even afford to fix their own boilers for wherever they are. So, sometimes they have to pay over the odds on call-out charges, and particularly in this weather. So sometimes if you just register yourself as a tradesperson with a charity and say, look, I'd just like to be here if you ever need me, that can be a big help.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'm completely useless, can't do a thing. I can talk about it, really. So what would somebody like me do?
Well, even someone like yourself, I've got an ex-journalist on my board who helps me with press releases. It's just things like that can be so... Okay, it's not about a physical contribution or financial contribution. It's about your expertise, and giving something back in the smallest way possible can make all the difference to a charity. These kind of things, anybody who's got a skill, I've got people in local government who sit on my board of trustees. I've got a solicitor. Anyone who
that would be useful, wouldn't it?
And if you've got an hour a week or something, or an hour a month, anything could be of use.
That sounds great. That's certainly given me food for thought. It's been great talking to you, and let's please remember those smaller charities. We may not know where they are, but we can find out who they are, and we can help. So Amo Raju there, CEO of Disability Direct and author of Walk Like a Man. Now, tell me